What happens when the crew of the USS Enterprise gets turned into puppets? An Orion pirate decides the ship is easy prey, and Spock is left trying to keep the entire disaster from becoming a complete circus. Somehow, Star Trek: Strange New Worlds makes it work. Level 5 transporter accident is exactly the kind of episode only this series could pull off. Completely ridiculous on the surface, surprisingly sincere underneath, and packed with enough strange ideas to remind you why Strange New Worlds has become one of the most unpredictable shows in the franchise. We already knew the puppet episode was coming after the first teaser revealed Captain Pike in full felt form, but seeing the entire Enterprise crew transformed is still gloriously bizarre. And the best part is that beneath all the jokes, this is actually another important chapter in Spock's ongoing struggle to understand who he really is. Spock has been carrying a tremendous amount of emotional weight since the events involving the USS Griffin, and his attempt to reconnect with his Vulcan side is supposed to give him some much-needed clarity. He plans to spend time on Vulcan, get away from the chaos, and find his balance again. Naturally, the Enterprise has other plans. Scotty's obsession with breaking a transporter record leads to an experiment involving a bizarre childhood doll called Little Ricky, and before anyone can stop him, the entire crew is transformed into living puppets. It sounds completely insane because it is, but the episode never treats the transformation as something that needs to be explained into submission. Instead, it embraces the madness. Suddenly, Pike, Uhura, Lon, Pelia, and the rest of the crew are tiny fell versions of themselves, struggling with doors, controls, and basic ship operations. The visual comedy is fantastic, especially when Spock is forced to remain the only remotely functional adult in the room. Ethan Peck absolutely carries this side of the episode. Watching Spock attempt to operate a starship while surrounded by puppet versions of his colleagues is comedy gold, but Peck never plays the situation as a simple joke. His frustration gradually becomes genuine exhaustion, particularly as he races between stations trying to compensate for a crew that can barely operate a touchscreen with their tiny felt hands. Then things become even worse when an Orion pirate ship discovers the Enterprise is effectively being run by puppets and decides to seize the opportunity. What follows is pure Strange New Worlds chaos, with the crew facing apparently deadly situations that become hilarious because of the absurd physical limitations of their new bodies. Puppet Pike getting launched through an airlock and delivering a dramatic farewell is a perfect example of the episode's humor, especially when everyone remembers that puppets do not actually need to breathe. But beneath all that madness, the episode has a very clear message. The puppets are not simply a gimmick. They represent the freedom of embracing the parts of yourself that feel strange, awkward, or difficult to control. Pelia understands that immediately because, frankly, being weird is already her speciality. Spock, however, has spent much of his life trying to control the conflict between his human emotions and Vulcan logic. His entire journey in Strange New Worlds has been about finding a balance between those two identities, and this episode pushes that theme into one of the strangest situations imaginable. Even his relationship with T'Pring becomes part of that emotional journey. Gia Sandhu remains one of the episode's quiet highlights, delivering T'Pring-esque dry reactions with exactly the right amount of restraint while everyone else descends into puppet madness. The only weakness is that the episode once again spends valuable time circling Spock's romantic life. His relationship with T'Pring remains charming, and their chemistry is undeniable. But with the series moving towards its final chapters, repeatedly asking who Spock should be with romantically feels less interesting than exploring the man he is becoming. Still, Level 5 Transporter Accident earns its place as one of the season's boldest episodes. It is funny, weird, visually unforgettable, and unexpectedly heartfelt. More importantly, it understands something essential about Star Trek. Sometimes the strangest stories are the ones that reveal the most about the people inside them. Thanks for watching.